Hey everyone, there's no Laker game today, so I want to talk about Nikola Jokic, 61, 10, and 10 triple-double. And then I want to have a broader conversation just about Nikola Jokic. Super impressive. I love his game. I love how he plays. But people are going to think I'm hating on him. I'm not hating on him for this. But people don't understand that defense is a huge part of being a center in the NBA. If somebody wants to say he's the greatest offensive center ever, I'm not tripping. Fine, go ahead, say that. I get it. I don't think that's true, but hey, take it. That's not a big deal to me, right? What I want to say is, how many blocks did he have yesterday? Is he any kind of intimidator at the rim? How much does that count for? Dennis Rodman is considered one of the top 50 players ever, right? How many points did he score? My only thing I'm saying is this, and you could say the same thing about Dikembe Mutombo also. Dikembe Mutombo, Allen Iverson did not get those 76ers to the NBA Finals by himself. He got them there because Dikembe Mutombo had the middle on lock. Why is that not considered when people talk about Nikola Jokic? Now, I need to put something in perspective. My favorite player ever is Magic Johnson. I believe Magic Johnson is the greatest player ever. After a lot of thought, I think Magic is the greatest player ever. I think LeBron is second or third. I think Jordan is 3 to 5 as far as greatest ever. Now, people are going to say, oh, you're hating on Jordan. I'm not hating on Jordan. I'm telling you what I think. I loved Jordan when he played. I got tired of everybody jocking him after a minute, but I loved Jordan when he played. The reason why I bring up Magic Johnson and him being my favorite player ever in relation to Nikola Jokic is because, in my opinion, Magic Johnson loses the battle of the highlight reel. Magic Johnson, a lot of what he did looks somewhat antiquated. It doesn't look all that impressive nowadays. 25, 30 years from now, when people go back and look at clips of Nikola Jokic, because believe me, they won't have the discipline to sit down and watch entire games of Nikola Jokic and understand what that dude represented in context throughout the course of a whole game. People will not have the discipline to do that. They're going to go back and look at clips. And when they look at clips, they're going to say, this guy is a guy who won 4 MVPs in a row. This guy is a guy you're saying is the greatest ever. That's what they're going to say. I only say that to let you know that I'm not hating on Jokic. I appreciate his game. I think Jokic, no, let me take that back. I was about to say I think Jokic is as good as Jordan. Look, man, when you talk about the players at the top, you can't crap on somebody for thinking somebody is as good as Jordan. The only reason why Jordan has that rep of being, so prestigious and whatnot is because the guys you see right now that are on TV right now built their careers on Jordan's backs. Broussard, Wilbon, Kornheiser, Stephen A., all of them. Their big money came with Jordan. I'll give Jordan one thing. Other than that, he is one of the greatest players ever, is that he bought buku bucks to the NBA. Magic and Bird bought buku bucks to the NBA. Jordan took it to another level. And when he took it there, all these other cats' salaries went up too. So when you see them on TV praising him, in a sense, they've been bought off. That's just the truth. Right? So, back to Jokic. I brought up Magic Johnson because I grew up and I watched Magic play. And I understand his value. What's misrepresented about Magic is what Magic's true value was. People say, oh, he's a passer. He's a great passer. Right? No, that's not what his value was. His value was you could take him, Magic, and 4 of the best players at their position in the NBA and put them all on the court together. And it would feel like everybody was playing at their best. That was Magic's value. You take Hakeem Olajuwon, you take Magic Johnson, you take Michael Jordan, you take, say, James Worthy, and let's say you put Larry Bird at power forward, Kevin McHale, whoever, it doesn't matter. You put Magic at point, it's going to feel like all those guys are playing at their best. Downhill, giving 100%. You take Michael Jordan and put him on that same team, everybody got to pull back a little bit. Everyone is not playing their game. I used to always say, if you want to see the United States blow out teams in the Olympics, send the NBA championship team. It's harder to do that now because is such a huge European influence on the game. But if you were to send the NBA championship team, especially in like the 80s when there was no European influence, the Los Angeles Lakers, the 1987 Los Angeles Lakers, the 1986 Boston Celtics, right? The 1986 Houston Rockets, who lost to the Boston Celtics. If you were to send them to the Olympics, if you could, right? If you could time travel them forward to 1992 and send them to the Olympics, they smoke all those teams easier than the Dream Team did. People say, oh, how? Because there's a such thing as chemistry. Anyone who played basketball understands chemistry. And the notion that people don't understand the fact that the Lakers played together for a freaking decade. They would smoke. In 92, they would smoke the Olympics just like the Dream Team did. Even worse. They'd have less of a chance. Okay, so why am I bringing that up, right? I'm bringing that up because when everything is said and done, people aren't going to understand the role Magic Johnson plays. What his true gift was, what his value was. His value was making everybody... when you came against the Lakers, you came against everybody. When you came against the Bulls, it did not feel like that. It felt like you were coming against Jordan and Pippen. But when you played the Lakers, everybody was coming at you. 100% all the way downhill. That was his value, and that couldn't be articulated. You don't hear people articulate that value. Jokic, fantastic offensive player. I asked earlier, how many blocks did he have last night? I already looked it up. 0. Your starting center had 0 blocks in 55 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. 53 minutes. I don't know. How many minutes did he play? 53 minutes. He had 0 blocks. That's crazy, man. Dude took 29 shots and scored 61 points. I mean, that's crazy. That's fantastic. I mean, but I'll tell you like this. That's the reason why. And I bring this up because they're going nuts over it on First Take, making such a big deal about it. And they're saying, he's the best center ever. I'm just like, yo, dude, there's another side of the basketball. There's another side of the game than scoring 61 points. And these guys are conveniently not acknowledging it. I'm going to tell you right now, Hakeem Olajuwon was better than Nikola Jokic. Would Hakeem Olajuwon, did he ever score 61 points? No, not that I remember. So, Kobe scored 81. I think Magic is the greatest. So what? Dude scored 61 points. 10 and 10. Which brings me to another point about triple doubles. Because you go from single digits to double digits, these simple-minded morons on TV flip out about what you did. you'd have to be a fool to not acknowledge that it's a great feat. But when you want to take that and then all of a sudden have this conversation about where he stands in the history of the game as far as the greatest centers ever, and you don't acknowledge that on the other half of the court, the dude had 0 blocks. Now, if we're talking about Isaiah Thomas, Kevin Johnson, Russell Westbrook, right? Am I tripping because those players didn't have 0 shots if they happen to have a 61, 10, and 10 triple-double? No, I'm not. Why am I speaking on Nikola Jokic not having 0 blocks? Because he's a center. Again, that's why I brought up earlier Dikembe Mutombo. Dikembe Mutombo totally controlled games because he locked down the middle. How could you not acknowledge that in any conversation about where Nikola Jokic stands as one of the greatest centers ever? How could you not acknowledge that? And it makes you kind of believe it's deliberate. Because in good faith, how could you not acknowledge that? It makes no sense. I know when Akeem Olajuwon played, they had a game plan for him. And mind you, this is the other thing I'll say. When Akeem Olajuwon played, in my opinion, he didn't have as good of players around him as Nikola Jokic does. Right? You know, you're talking about Jamal Murray, who at any one particular time is a top 3 point guard in the NBA. Dude is erratic in how he plays, but when he's on, he is one of the best point guards in the NBA. Aaron Gordon's been fantastic. I think he's damn near perfect complement next to Nikola Jokic. You got Michael Porter Jr., who has fallen off in his development, but is still a very good player. When Akeem Olajuwon won his titles, look at who he had around him. Otis Thorpe was a position defending, role playing power forward. Good player, but that's what he was. And then you had a bunch of perimeter guys. You had Robert Horry in his rookie year, where he was very effective but not his best. You had Sam Cassell, Kenny Smith, Vernon Maxwell, Clyde Drexler, who by the time Clyde Drexler got to Houston, he was not the same Clyde Drexler. Still very good, but not the same Clyde Drexler that he was in Portland. And the funny thing about that is, Akeem Olajuwon, in my opinion, could have scored 60-something points in a game. Had 10 rebounds and 10 assists. Except he would have had 8 blocks on the other end too. Not only would he have had 8 blocks on the other end, he would have intimidated or discouraged another 10, 15 points. Easy. Just by being there. What does that count for? And here's the reason why I said he could have had 60 points. Because the game plan back then was inside out. Throw it into Akeem, who will bust your butt for 45, 50 points if you don't double him. So when the double came, he kicked the ball out and they whipped it around to the open man. Inside out. Right? Akeem played the game the right way. Jokic plays the game the right way. But don't get it twisted. If you have a team in which a player is averaging 60, 10, and 10, that team is probably not very good. Because that probably indicates the team is not playing the right way. In an NBA game, you shouldn't have 60, 10, and 10. In an NBA game, I shouldn't say the 10 and 10 part. You just shouldn't have 60. When Kobe scored 81, okay, it's one game, I get it, and the team won. That's the other half of it. The Lakers won that game. When you have Jokic get 61, 10, and 10, and the team loses, that is not the game to take and say, is he the greatest, to start the conversation of, is he the greatest center ever? It's a joke. And again, the fact that you don't acknowledge the defensive end of the ball makes you a part of the problem that's going on. If there is a problem in the NBA, you're a part of it. If you refuse to acknowledge the defensive end of the ball, of the game. Here's the other thing. Denver shot 54.7%. Minnesota shot 46.8%. Where did the points go? How do you lose that game? Rebounds. Minnesota had 52 rebounds. Denver had 45. You know, not all rebounds are created equally. There are many rebounds where the tallest guy is going to get the ball. If you play 53 minutes and you don't have 6-7 rebounds, I'm looking at you sideways, especially if you're a center. I don't put much stock in those 10 rebounds, man. That's what I'm getting at. I mean, it doesn't mean much to me. Why would it? You're 7 foot big, you take up all kinds of space, and in 53 minutes you had 10 rebounds. I mean, it's better than 9, I guess. Better than 4, right? I mean, just the way people think and approach this stuff is kind of ridiculous. Like I said, man, Minnesota shot 47%. Denver shot 54.7%, 55%. How do you lose that game? What was missing? Right? And, again, 0 block shots. Had he shut down the middle at all, Denver wins that game. And people keep, and this is the other thing, right? I am not a person to look at the block shots and then turn around and say, okay, that guy, he's a defensive MVP. I think the fact Rudy Gobert has, 3 defensive MVP awards is ridiculous. Anybody who watches the games know he doesn't deserve 3 MVPs. Defensive Player of the Year awards. Everyone who watches the game knows that. It's lazy. In the same way it's lazy to say, oh, he scored 61, 10, and 10 last night, right? It's lazy then to say we need to start the conversation about him being the greatest center ever. Lazy thinking. Oh, he averages the most steals. You know Magic Johnson averaged the most steals in the NBA one year? I'm telling you right now, he was not Defensive Player of the Year. He's my favorite player ever. He ain't come close to deserving no Defensive Player of the Year award. Michael Cooper, on the other hand, who probably never led the NBA in steals, he does. Dennis Rodman, I don't know if he ever led the NBA in steals. That dude deserved Defensive Player of the Year. I seen some of the cats on Minnesota when they played Denver last year. I said, those guys are Defensive Player of the Year types. Rudy Gobert is not, just because he averaged more blocks. He's not. I just hope that going forward, people start to look at stuff with a little bit more thought, because it's getting, and it's pervasive, right? It's pervading society, right? If you talk to somebody about politics and they say, "Oh, I just liked Trump's policies," what are his policies that you liked? His immigration. That's not a policy. "Quote unquote," his immigration is not a policy. What are you talking about, man? You can't think past the 20 seconds it takes you to watch a Facebook Reels clip. That's the problem. I'm trying to have a conversation with you, and you're not saying anything. Again, for this to happen, for Jokic, who I really like, to put up those numbers, which are absolutely awesome, and you start to say, I got Kareem close second behind Jokic, is best player ever. Man, you're a joke. You are a joke. Kareem played both ends of the court. Kareem locked up the middle. If you lose the game that way, is it fair to say maybe 61-10-10 was not the right way to go? Maybe that was not the most effective means of winning the game. Is that fair to say? Because you could say that. Or you could say other players should have done more because he left him hanging, blah, 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 this, that. And you could say that too. I'm inclined to think, though, that if you score 61 points, you're not playing the game the right way. The game is not designed to be played that way. Last thing before I get off of this, and this is going to be uncomfortable for a lot of you, but I don't care. This is pure uncut Lakers. You're going to get the pure and uncut. Right? That's what you're getting here. And you know, they want to give Nikola Jokic another MVP award. And they're trying to find a reason. And while I think he is the best player in the NBA right now, while I think that, I also know that historically, we're supposed to have MVP fatigue of Nikola Jokic. He got his one championship in those 3 or 4. He got his one championship out of those in one of the years he won the MVP. Right? You could argue he's been a disappointment otherwise. And I know that. And again, Jordan is not my guy. Magic is my guy. But Jordan deserved 4 MVPs at least in a row. LeBron got 4. Right? Yeah, 4 or 5. Either way. Jokic got 3. They want to give him a 4th in a row. We're supposed to have MVP fatigue. That's how we've been moving. And given that he's only won 1, it seems a little bit it seems a little bit it's something personal to it. It's something more illogical to it. And I'm just going to say it. Racism is illogical. And Jokic is the best player in the NBA. And I believe he deserves another MVP. But if your rules say that after 2 or 3 MVPs, we get MVP fatigue of you, and we move on to somebody else in the next phase. And it was like that for so many players. You have to maintain that. Don't change it now. You see, and a lot of you are going to look at me and say, oh, I'm playing the race. No, I'm not playing the race card. I'm telling you what it is. Right? When I was younger, I'm a child of the crack era. Right? If you were 10 years old, 15 years, 12, 13, 14 years old in the 80s and 90s, you are a child of the crack era. And I remember, white, black, all of us, Latinos, all of us. We are a child of that era. Now, whether it touched you or not, that's a different story. But you are a child of that era. And in the 80s and 90s, they tore up families over drugs that could not be produced here and were not produced here, but flooded the neighborhoods. They tore up families over illegal drugs. Well, these opioids and this meth is treated with a lot more empathy, sympathy, and understanding than the 80s era. Don't tell me that I have to drop the fact that I acknowledge that. I'm not going to drop the fact that I acknowledge that, because that's what it is. That's what happened. And same thing goes for MVP fatigue. The NBA got MVP fatigue for Goliath, who I call Shaq, you know, is Shaq, after one MVP. Dude deserved at least 3. One MVP. Kobe. One MVP. Steve Nash. 2 MVPs. Look, man. And this is just what it is, man. You know, if this stuff makes you uncomfortable, hey, man, move on. But I know that the one thing that could get the NBA to go through the shoot straight to the stars and make inroads on the NFL would be about 5 or 6 badass white boys who could play, who deserve to be American white boys who could play, and absolutely deserve to be in the MVP conversation. Sprinkle them around the NBA, and you see what happens to the numbers, right? You saw what happened when Magic and Larry Bird came into the NBA. But how were they talking about the NBA before that? Am I just supposed to not acknowledge how people were talking about the NBA before that? Before those two came? And often, while those two were there? While those two were in the NBA? Same narratives? Nah, man, I'm not going to forget this stuff. I'm not going to act like it didn't happen. I'm not going to whitewash history. I'm not doing it. The rules have always stated that after 2 or 3 MVPs, we get MVP fatigue, and even if you deserve it, we're moving on to a new face. Am I wrong? If I know I'm right. So that's the reason why when it comes to Jokic, or when it comes to Steve Nash, right? Or Larry Bird, who was the first player in many, many years to win 3 in a row, if I'm not mistaken. Not a coincidence. It's harder to get MVP fatigue when you're talking about a white player. And to a certain extent, I get it. Yo, I still root for black quarterbacks. Even if I don't like the team. I like you now because you got a black quarterback. Am I being racist? Or is it because when I was younger, the only black quarterbacks I saw were Warren Moon, Randall Cunningham, and a guy named Vince Evans, who I grew up in Southern California. He was the backup for the LA Raiders. Those were the only guys. And Warren Moon had to go to the CFL, the Canadian Football League, and then ultimately came back down to the NFL. Did that not condition me or touch me? Am I just supposed to drop all that I know and all that I've seen and all that I experienced for somebody's comfort? I'm not doing it. I know this stuff, and I'm going to acknowledge it. And I brought up the fact about the black quarterback thing because conversely, I understand how a white kid could see a white player who is killing it and is absolutely among, if not the best player in the NBA, and, you know, even a white male, and want to get behind that. I get it. The NBA is so damn black. It is. It's true. It's so black that when you see a white person shine, yo, man, you want to cultivate that. You want to give that a little push. You want to caress that a little bit more for a little longer than you would for somebody else. I'm not tripping about that. What I'm tripping about is that everybody knows its rules. And it's been rules. And the fact that we're all of a sudden going to act like it's not rules right now. And this, in my opinion, Stephen A is selling out for the masses when he says Jokic is the best center ever. It's a joke. Because look, the dude had 0 blocks last night. He has little to no paint presence. And they want to, at the center position. And they want to bring him up as the best ever and ignore that aspect of the game. They should be ashamed of themselves. It's a joke. They know who their audience is. They know where their money comes from. And they're playing to it. And if Nikola Jokic won a 4th MVP in a row, they'd have nothing to say about it. But they should. Because we all know the rules. That's my take on Jokic, man. I love the dude. And I know this probably sounded like I was hating. I ain't hating on him. I'm not hating on him. But the dude is, I don't think he's a top 10 player ever. I don't think he's a top 15 player ever. That's not an insult. I think he's 15 to 20, something like that. Not an insult. It's just what I know about that particular position. If you're a center and you got no paint presence, and this dude over here does, man, you could change an entire game with one center with some paint presence. You could change an entire game. He doesn't have that. He's great on offense, though. I respect him. Anyway, hey, man, let me tell you something about this channel, man. I will relate what I think needs to be related. Right? If we're talking about MVP fatigue, or people looking at this player this way and this player that way, and wanting to caress and understand and coddle this player over here, but they're ready to kick this player to the curb, yeah, I'm going to bring up how the whole freaking society used the war on drugs as a war on black men. A gang of them went to jail for drugs that couldn't be grown here. That they did not have the money or means to fly into this country. We're talking about cocaine-based drugs. And just the fact that we coddle the opioid and meth epidemic now, and we did not coddle back then, man, that cannot go unnoticed to me. I mean, my mind immediately went there. It's not because I want to live in a racial world, but because I understand the context, the dynamics, the thought process of those people, often my age, who are making the decision on who the MVP is. They want to coddle what they know, what they're familiar with, what makes them feel good, what makes them feel bad. They want to coddle that. And they want to discard the dude that is not them. That doesn't remind them of their whoever. That's human nature, man. I'm not going to act like I don't recognize human nature. For views, clicks, likes, whatever, subscribers, I'm not doing it. Really, this channel is just therapeutic for me. That's why I like doing it, because I feel better after I do it. Anyway, that's the video. There's no Laker game tonight. Hopefully we could stay on track, win some games, and better understand who we are before the playoffs start. Anyway, this is Pure Uncut Lakers. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.